Disney did not send The Mandalorian and Grogu into theaters like a normal movie. Oh, no, no, no. They gave it a lower budget than the usual Disney Star Wars problem child. They gave it Memorial Day weekend. They gave it premium screens. They gave it Grogu. They gave it Jon Favreau. They gave it Dave Filoni. They gave it Kathleen Kennedy's name when they needed institutional legitimacy, and then tried hiding her whenever the room got spicy. They gave it Pedro Pascal at a peak entertainment boyfriend status. They even turned Disneyland into a live-action promotional content farm, complete with Pedro popping out in Mandalorian armor like a corporate jump scare. And after all that, we're still talking about Solo numbers. That right there is the story. Not Star Wars is dead, not Disney's panicking, not Baby Yoda couldn't save it. The story is much more interesting. Disney built The Mandalorian and Grogu to be the safest theatrical Star Wars release possible. And the fact that it still needs this much padding should scare the hell out of Lucasfilm. Welcome back to The Critical Nerd, where we keep our expectations low and our receipts high and our Disney press tours safely stored in the same containment unit where they keep Kathleen Kennedy's public appearances. Today we're talking about The Mandalorian and Grogu, the first theatrical Star Wars movie since The Rise of Skywalker in 2019. And yes, I know what everyone else is saying. The reviews are mixed, the tracking is soft, critics are calling it a supersized Disney Plus episode, Disney Star Wars is in trouble, the franchise is damaged, the sacred texts have once again been used as a napkin at the Lucasfilm cafeteria. And all that may be true, but that's also the obvious video. The better question is not, will The Mandalorian and Grogu underperform? The better question is, why did Disney build this movie like they already knew it might? Because when you look at the receipts, this is not a movie Disney threw into the market to test the strength of Star Wars. This is a movie Disney protected. They lowered the bar before the race started. They cleared the runway. They loaded every available marketing cannon. And if this thing still lands in the same neighborhood as Solo, then the problem is not one movie. The problem is the theatrical value of Star Wars itself. So, let's count the levers. First lever. They lowered the cost floor. Yeah, Disney lowered the cost floor. Reported budget on The Mandalorian and Grogu is around $165 million. Now, for normal people, that is not what I would call cheap. That is the GDP of a small nation with a very aggressive Funko Pop habit. But for Disney Star Wars, that's controlled risk. This is not The Force Awakens. This is not The Last Jedi. This is not The Rise of Skywalker. And it is definitely not Solo, which had a production meltdown, director changes, reshoots, and enough behind-the-scenes chaos to make Lucasfilm look like a group project where everyone forgot the due date. Mando and Grogu is designed differently. Jon Favreau already built this world on Disney+. The volume technology, the digital sets, the costumes, the creatures, the production language. A lot of the infrastructure already existed from the show. So Disney's first hedge was simple. Make the movie smaller. Lower the number it needs to hit. Before the audience ever bought a ticket, Disney had already moved the goalpost closer. And that matters, because if this movie opens to around $80 to $100 million over the Memorial Day weekend, Disney and the trades can say, well, with the lower budget, it's respectable. That's not confidence. That is accounting wearing a Mandalorian helmet. Number 2, they picked the softest possible competitive lane. Disney did not put this movie against a true 4-quadrant monster. This is not 2025 when Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning turned Memorial Day into a box office knife fight and helped create one of the biggest holiday weekends ever. This time, Disney found the lane where Star Wars could not have to share the oxygen with another giant, and that's not by accident. That is runway management. Because when you are relaunching theatrical Star Wars after 6 years away, or maybe 7, you do want competition. You want a clean field. You want premium screens. You want the cultural conversation. You want the headlines to say Star Wars returns. Not Star Wars returns and gets elbowed in the face by Tom Cruise hanging off another aircraft for the insurance company's entertainment. So Disney cleared the lane, which means if Mandalorian and Grogu does not explode out of the gate, there is no obvious external excuse. You cannot blame the competition when the competition was basically escorted to the children's table. Number 3, Memorial Day weekend. Disney did not dump this thing in February. They did not hide it in late August, where studios send movies when the marketing department has already started updating LinkedIn. They gave it Memorial Day, a holiday frame, a 4-day weekend, the kind of slot studios use when they believe they have an event. And this is important because Solo also opened Memorial Day weekend of 2018. That comparison is not just being made because people like dunking on Solo, although to be fair, dunking on Solo has been one of Lucasfilm's most reliable revenue streams. The comparison matters because Solo opened to about $103 million over the 4-day holiday frame, finished around $213 million domestic, and under $400 million worldwide. And after that, Lucasfilm's theatrical standalone strategy basically went into witness protection. So when the Mandalorian and Grogu is tracking in the 80 to 100-ish million range for the same holiday frame, after 6 years of theatrical absence, after Disney lowered the budget, after Disney cleared the runway, after Disney brought out Grogu and Pedro Pascal, that's not just a number. That's a haunted house with box office receipts taped to the walls. Number 4, scarcity. This is the first theatrical Star Wars movie since 2019, and that should matter. Absence is supposed to create demand. The whole pitch should be Star Wars is finally back in theaters. But Disney has a problem because Star Wars was not really absent. It was just moved over to Disney Plus. And this is where the streaming damage comes in. Disney trained the audience to think of modern Star Wars as subscription content. Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Andor, Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew. Some of it good, some of it not. Some of it making you ask whether anyone at Lucasfilm has ever spoken to another human being without using the phrase emotional truth. But the bigger issue is behavioral. For years, Disney told audiences, Star Wars lives on Disney Plus now, and the audiences adjusted. They learned to wait. They learned to sample. They learned to treat Star Wars like homework. They learned that if they missed something, the next recap video would do less damage to their time and possibly their childhood. Now, Disney wants those same people to leave the house, pay theatrical prices, buy snacks, sit through trailers, and treat The Mandalorian and Grogu like an event. But the reviews keep circling the same problem. It feels like television. And that in itself is devastating, because this is not just a movie that feels like TV. This is a movie standing over the chalk outline of The Mandalorian Season 4. Number 5, Disney converted a TV continuation into a theatrical test. This is the part people need to sit with. Favreau and Filoni had already been working on a 4th season of The Mandalorian. Then Lucasfilm reevaluated its theatrical plans and prioritized the movie. So when critics say this feels like a season of television compressed into a feature, that is not just a creative criticism. That is a business model receipt. Disney took something audiences were conditioned to expect as part of their Disney Plus subscription and repackaged it as a theatrical movie. That does not mean the movie cannot be entertaining. It might be fine. That is actually the scarier possibility. Because if the movie is fine and audiences still do not treat it like an event, then Disney has a much deeper problem. The question is not, do people hate Mando? The question is, do people think Mando belongs in a theater? And Disney's entire strategy is begging the audience to answer yes. Number 6, Pedro Pascal. Now we have to talk about the Disneyland stunt. Pedro Pascal shows up in full Mandalorian armor at Galaxy's Edge, surprises fans inside Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run, takes off the helmet, everyone screams, ah! Disney gets the clip, the official Star Wars accounts get content, and the Disney-friendly influencer ecosystem gets its magical moment. And the marketing department gets to pretend this is an organic heat. Very cute, very polished, very Disney, and also very revealing. Because this is not just marketing. Studios market movies. That's normal. But this felt like Disney trying to manufacture the one thing tracking and reviews were not giving them organically. That's event energy. And that is the key phrase. Event energy. Pedro Pascal at Disneyland was not the scandal. It was the symptom. Disney knew this movie needed a cultural moment. So they built one inside a theme park ride. They took Pedro, Grogu, Galaxy's Edge, fan access, official accounts, ride synergy, and enough corporate pixie dust to pull a small Victorian child into a medically concerning coma. And then they turned it into content. But here's the problem. The viral clip is not the movie. The event became Pedro showing up at Disneyland, not necessarily the Mandalorian and Grogu opening in theaters. That's a very big difference, because people can say, wow, Pedro Pascal surprised fans at Disneyland, and still not say, I need to buy a Thursday preview ticket. That is the gap Disney is trying to close. And I'm not saying these people were paid shills. Let's be clear before the mouse sends legal Goofy to my house. I'm saying Disney has an access media ecosystem. Influencers, fan accounts, park activations, red carpet reactions, improved enthusiasm, carefully staged spontaneity. Hollywood has always done this. Disney just does it with better lighting and a souvenir popcorn bucket. Number 7. They did not just market the movie, they connected it to the parks. The Smuggler's Run ride is getting Mandalorian and Grogu updates, new story elements, new Grogu interactions, more cross-promotion between the movie and Galaxy's Edge. And again, that's not random. That is Disney using the whole machine. Movie, streaming, parks, merchandise, social media, influence, nostalgia, theme park infrastructure. This is what Disney does when it wants to protect an IP. And on paper, that should be a strength. But with Star Wars, it also exposes the problem. The brand is everywhere, but the theatrical urgency is not. Grogu can sell plushies. Grogu can sell mugs. Grogu can sell backpacks. Grogu can sell cereal, pajamas, blankets, probably some kind of limited edition emotional support tax software. But merchandise heat is not the same thing as movie-going urgency. And Disney keeps confusing these two things. A character being recognizable does not mean audiences will pay extra to see him in a theater, especially when they met him on a streaming service. Number 8, the creative safety package. This movie has every "don't worry, fans" name Lucasfilm can reasonably attach. Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Pedro Pascal, Grogu, Ludwig Göransson, Sigourney Weaver, Kathleen Kennedy on the official producing side. Because whether people like her or not, she is still institutional. She's still an institutional Lucasfilm name. This is not some random experiment. This is not the acolyte trying to explain the Force through HR paperwork and interpretive trauma. This is supposed to be safe Star Wars, comfort food Star Wars. Mando and Baby Yoda go on an adventure. You clap. You buy popcorn buckets. You remember 2019 before Disney Plus became a content landfill. This is why this matters. If this underperforms, Disney cannot say, well, fans rejected some risky new direction. This is not risky. This is the low-risk play. This is the safe card. This is Lucasfilm putting the training wheels back on the speeder bike. And if the safe play cannot create theatrical urgency, what exactly is the risky play supposed to do? Number 9, review timing. The reviews dropped early enough to give Disney a few days of conversation before Thursday previews and opening weekend. The embargo actually lifted yesterday as I'm recording this video. That only helps if the reviews give you something useful to amplify. And to be fair, not every review is a disaster. Some critics are saying it's decent. Some are saying it's entertaining. Some are saying it works as a fun standalone adventure. But the recurring criticism is the one Disney cannot want. It feels like a TV episode, or multiple TV episodes, or Disney Plus with popcorn. That is the box office poison pill. Because people do not need to hate a movie to skip it. They just need to think, I can wait. And if your first theatrical Star Wars movie in 6 years makes people think, I can wait, congratulations, you have made the most expensive streaming commercial in the galaxy. And finally, number 10, the box office number was pre-framed. Tracking has been discussed in the $80 to $100 million range for the 4-day Memorial Day weekend. And the way this gets framed is very important. If the movie lands near $80 million, the spin will be solid opening, respectable for the budget, good enough considering the theatrical environment, strongest family interest, promising restart for Star Wars. And maybe some of that is technically true, but the receipts do not care about vibes. This is the first theatrical Star Wars movie since 2019. It has Grogu, Pedro Pascal, Memorial Day, a soft lane, premium formats, Disney Parks synergy. It has the safest fan service package Lucasfilm could assemble without digging up Darth Vader and making him do a TikTok dance. Yeesh. So if the win condition is now, please open near the number that made Solo infamous, then Disney has not relaunched Star Wars. Disney has negotiated with expectations, and the expectations appear to have brought a lawyer. So, now let's talk about Solo, because this is the receipt that closes the argument. Solo opened over Memorial Day weekend of 2018 to around $103 million over the 4-day weekend. The number was considered a disaster for Star Wars. The movie finished under $400 million worldwide. And after that, the standalone legacy character movie strategy basically died. That was the cautionary tale. That was the warning sign. That was the moment Lucasfilm realized audiences would not automatically show up just because the logo said Star Wars. Now fast forward to The Mandalorian and Grogu. This movie was built to avoid becoming Solo. It is cheaper, it has a beloved streaming character, it has the most marketable creature Disney has created since Olaf became a snowman-shaped annuity. It has Pedro Pascal, it has 6 years of theatrical absence, has a cleaner release lane, has Memorial Day, has Park Synergy, has influencers, has access media. It has every lever Disney could pull without physically mailing a Grogu plush to every household with the Disney Plus login. And the comparison is still Solo. There's the story. The lever pulling did not move the number far enough to kill the comparison. And if Disney's most protected Star Wars release still gets measured against the movie that broke the theatrical strategy, the issue is no longer bad marketing. The issue is brand damage. And here's where it gets worse, because The Mandalorian and Grogu is the padded landing. The next major theatrical test is Star Wars Starfighter with Ryan Gosling and Sean Levy. That movie does not get the same cushion. Does not get Grogu. Does not get the first Star Wars movie in 6 years novelty. It does not get an audience already trained around an existing Disney Plus lead. It does not get the same Mando armor nostalgia. It does not get Baby Yoda doing puppet sorcery on every piece of merchandise within a 5-mile radius of Target. It has to tell a new theatrical Star Wars proposition. And if Disney is struggling to make the safest version feel like an event, what happens when the next one has to stand on its own? That is the forward-looking problem. That is not just about opening weekend. This is about whether Disney can still make Star Wars feel theatrical. Because for years, Disney treated Star Wars like a content pipeline. Now they want it to behave like an event brand again. But audiences remember what you train them to do, and Disney trained them to wait. So no, the real story of The Mandalorian and Grogu is simply not Star Wars is dead. That's too easy. The real story is that Disney built this movie to be almost impossible to fail by normal standards. Lower budget, holiday weekend, soft competition, premium screen, 6 years of scarcity, Pedro Pascal, Grogu, Favreau, Filoni, Galaxy's Edge, access media, theme park synergy, carefully managed expectations, every lever pulled, every cushion deployed, every corporate tool in the toolbox, well, except for sending Bob Iger door to door in a Mandalorian helmet, asking families if they accepted Grogu as their personal brand savior. And after all that, we're still talking about Solo. That's why this opening matters. Not because one movie can kill Star Wars. Disney already proved it takes several movies, multiple shows, a streaming service, a hotel nobody could afford, at least one boardroom PowerPoint to do that properly. This matters because The Mandalorian and Grogu is the safe bet. And if the safe bet needs this much protection, then Lucasfilm's problem is much bigger than one weekend. It means Disney may not be trying to save Star Wars anymore. They may be trying to soften the landing. As always, keep your expectations low and your receipts high. I'm the Critical Nerd, and I am out.